Smartphone video is really exciting because it is quality. People don't expect this from smartphones, but in the last 2 years, iPhones take amazing, incredible video. Sure, there's a lot of exciting professional digital cameras out there that record great video that you can look into, like the Sony a7S III or the Canon EOS 5, R5, whatever. There's a lot of those kinds of cameras, but they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you really want good video quality that's a step up from a phone, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money. So if you have a phone, particularly an iPhone flagship in the last few years, I highly recommend you use it. And in this video, I wanna give you advice, 5 tips specifically, because hey, turns out numbered lists work well on YouTube, that I have for making video on a phone. So the first tip that I have is to make sure that the video you're making is stable. If you are vlogging, if you are doing action, get a gimbal. A gimbal is a very cool motorized contraption that stabilizes your video. I use the DJI Osmo Mobile 3. I like that one with one exception. You need to download an app and make an account to set it up, which kind of sucks, but it's a great device. Also, sometimes you just want to film video that's standard, like this, where you have a static shot. Then get a tripod. You probably are familiar with what a tripod is. The nice thing about smartphones is that the tripods for smartphones can be really small and lightweight. Just make sure that it's high enough so that you can mount it off the floor, on a table, on a desk, whatever you need, but get a tripod. And if you do find yourself getting more advanced or see yourself in the future getting a real camera, then maybe consider getting a more serious tripod that can handle larger payloads so that you have that flexibility and room to grow in the future. My second tip for smartphone videography is using the right settings, and this is so important. Go into your iPhone settings and make sure you are shooting in 4K 30 frames per second. This is my standard recommendation for most video because it is the standard for video. 30 frames per second because that's what people are used to, and 4K because that's the highest quality you can get from a phone. And even if you're not putting your video and saving it in 4K, you'll have room to crop and do a lot of nice things if you're filming in 4K. Just make sure your phone has the storage for it. If you have a 64, 128, 256 gigabyte phone, you should have plenty of space for it. So I recommend doing that, and I also recommend considering other frame rates, but deliberately. So you can film in 24 frames per second. This will give you a very filmic, artsy look. It's a classic in cinema, but it is a very deliberate look. It's a kind of motion blurry, but it is very appealing to some people. Then there's 60 frames per second. That is more video gamey, more live action. It's very like action, live event type thing. If you're at a protest, 60 frames per second can really capture the mood of that environment and be a really powerful kind of way to communicate that. So consider your frame rate carefully and choose it. The one thing to keep in mind is film, like I said, film in 4K whenever you can. The nice thing with the newer iPhones is they film 4K up to 60, so you don't have to think about it at all. There's also slow motion modes, and use these sparingly with good light. They can also produce a really nice effect. My third tip for filming great video with a smartphone is to edit your video. And this is obvious, but there's a few different ways you can do it. The way I recommend is getting the video off your phone onto another device to edit, because while phones are great and there's many great apps you can edit with right on the phone, like iMovie, you want a bigger screen. If you have an iPad, the app Adobe Premiere Rush or LumaFusion works really well for kind of more advanced video editing. If you want a basic start to things, iMovie will get the job done. If you're on a desktop computer, you will need what is called a lightning cable. That's the thing that you charge your phone with. You'll plug it into your computer, you'll transfer the files over with iTunes or with Finder, and then you can use an app like the desktop version of Adobe Premiere Rush, which is kind of basic, or maybe the full version of Adobe Premiere. You could even use Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve. There's a lot of apps you can use on desktop. It's up to you. Though again, if you're getting started and you have a Mac, iMovie is a good one to start with. What about audio? This is my fourth tip for great smartphone video. Audio matters a lot, and it's so underrated, and if your video has bad audio, then no one's gonna wanna watch it. So the most important thing about this is get the mic close to you, no matter what it is. If that means that you're vlogging or you have your phone close to you, use the built-in mic on the phone. It's great, as it turns out. And even if you consider those shotgun mics that you might see for a phone, don't be tempted by those, because I don't think they're that useful. On a camera, they're useful because camera microphones that are built in suck, but Apple tends to put in really high quality microphones into the iPhone, so don't get those on, those microphones you mount on the phone. They're not worth it. But do consider a lavalier microphone. That's what I'm wearing right now. If you're filming videos like this where you might be a little farther away from the phone, or you want the freedom to walk around, or you're filming like a fitness video or something, lavalier mics are great, particularly the wireless variety, because it's exactly what it sounds like, no wires. There are wires to connect the mic to a receiver, which you can clip anywhere on your body, and then there's a wire for that receiver on the other end on your phone. But the whole system works really well. The one I recommend is the Rode Wireless Go. It's like $200, and it's a great start to wireless audio. It sounds great. You can even use your own lavalier mic, or you can use the built-in one. It's a great system. I will link that in the description along with the gimbal that I recommended earlier. In a pinch, you can actually use AirPods for wireless audio because the microphones on those sound all right. It won't be amazing quality, but people will understand you and you'll get by. Don't be afraid to use voiceover. So this means when you're editing the video, you will record a narration or voiceover with maybe like a USB desktop mic, like a Blue Yeti or a Rode NT. These are, great little desk mics you can get. And then you can just edit that into your video. Obviously, it doesn't make sense for every video, but if you can use voiceover and get away with it, then it makes it easier because you don't have to worry about audio when you're filming. My last tip, and one of the most important for great smartphone videography, this is tip number 5, is understand manual controls. This one is not essential right off the bat because smartphones have a lot of great automatic settings that do the job. But if you want to get more advanced, if you want your shots to look more consistent, if you want to be able to control your image more, you're going to want to adjust more and more kind of settings. And you can't do this with the stock camera app. All of my previous tips apply and work in Apple's own camera app, which is great. But if you are filming more advancedly, I would get the app Filmic Pro. I believe it's on the App Store for a small purchase, and then there's an in-app purchase to unlock the full functionality. It's like 10 bucks. If you are serious about smartphone video, it is well worth it. And one of the really nice things about smartphones, and Filmic Pro in particular on an iPhone, is there's a whole ecosystem of hardware accessories that it works with. So the Filmic Pro app will work with the DJI gimbal. It'll work with lenses and adapters made by this company Moment that makes clip-on, things that can modify the look of the camera on your phone. Like you can get an anamorphic lens that gives your whole video a cinematic look. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do. And the Filmic Pro app itself lets you change settings like shutter speed, ISO, and lock them, or white balance. You can lock white balance. What this means is the color, exposure, the actual quality of your image is adjustable. You can even film in a higher bit rate, which means that your footage when you're editing and saving will be sharper and you'll have more room to change things. So Filmic Pro is definitely the most advanced way to get more into editing. It's actually available on both Android and iOS, but my experience is on iPhone. That has been all my tips for smartphone video. I hope this video helps you. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. Either someone else will answer it or maybe I'll get to it, and I'm happy to help, and I might make a follow-up video if it turns out that there's a lot of additional clearing up people want. But hopefully this is a great introduction to making more professional kind of video with a smartphone, and it gets you started, and maybe saves you hundreds of thousands of dollars of buying camera equipment before you need it. So that's how to get started with a video on a smartphone. Go out there, go start shooting, and have a good time.